What are the top 3 Town Hall 13 attack strategies, you ask? Well, you are in luck, because in this video we are going to showcase you the strongest attacks, the ones that you can use to get overwhelming 3 stars, and I will be sure to break them down into as much depth as possible. So be sure to watch across all 3 attacks so that by the end of the video you will feel confident in getting some 3 stars. Alrighty guys, so starting off with the 3rd best attack strategy, I have chosen the Electro Dragons. Now, I have been watching all of the attacks at Golden X, and the top 2 strategies will probably not be a surprise for you, but there's a lot of other strategies competing for the number 3 spot. The Lalo, the Dragons themselves, the E-Dragons. The reason I chose the Electro Dragons is because when you can choose the right base, you can really get this strategy to work. So let's go ahead and start the replay of this one, and I will be sure to pause and explain things in more depth as we need to. Now, whenever you have an E-Drag attack, you're looking for a few key principles, and one of them is that you can get some of the air defense down relatively early on. A lot of ground-based attacks are happening in the game right now, which means air defense can be relatively exposed to the side of the base. So if you can snipe that off with your queen, maybe a couple of loons, or in this case an E-Drag down to the bottom as well, gets super unfortunate not to take the 6 o'clock air defense out, but if you can take down the air defense, that is a huge advantage for any air attack, to be honest, but especially the E-Drags. Now, what else are you looking for? Now, one of the main things is pathing. Now, let's pause very briefly. I know that not everyone wants to see the attacks paused, but honestly, if the gameplay gets too far ahead of what we're saying, then we need to show the replay multiple times. We do have ideal pathing straight into the base here, which is where majority of the E-Drags will just fly straight in. The only issue is the air sweeper. Now, whenever you're doing an E-Drag attack, that is the number 1 priority. If you keep getting pushed back, then you're not going to get anything. So you have to freeze it if you are coming straight into it, as Big Daddy does in this attack. With that freeze, he also throws the Town Hall. Make sure that as you are freezing, you're getting extra value as well. Now, the E-Drags came straight into the center of the base. Meanwhile, we had a Stone Slammer moving up towards the air defense on the right hand side. What about the one over here though? Well, look at the chain value. This is another thing with E-Drags that you need to be looking at. So exposed air defense, creating pathing, getting through sweepers, but also the chain value. So when the E-Drags are in the center, we have the Clan Castle, high HP building. We have the Eagle Artillery, high HP building, as are many of the ones down here, but we can chain to the air defense from a number of angles. Any of the E-Drags in the center can chain through to it, any of them down the bottom can chain through to it, which means even when the E-Drags are relatively out of range almost, it's down, look. That air defense didn't even get a shot onto the E-Drags. And use your spells early. Whilst you have the E-Drags in the center, whilst they have all of that range and the chain value, look at this base. I mean, it is crushed, and that is why I chose the E-Drags at number 3, because when you can find a base which is very clumped, has the good chain value, trying to defend the ground meta, you really should be thinking about E-Drags, and I really wanted to have that highlighted in this video because you can really crush bases, as you've seen here. But the next 2 attacks are going to be ground attacks. Now, if you are new to my channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on my Clash of Clans content. But let's move across to number 2. The Yeti Smash it is. That is your number 2 attack, and there is a huge amount of ways that you can use this strategy. I will actually link a video I did showcasing the Yeti Smash and breaking it down in a bit more depth at the end of this video in case you missed that one. However, let's get into this attack. Now, for the Yeti Smash, you always want to try and create the funnel as effectively as possible. Now, one of the best ways of doing that is your Grand Warden Walk. I say it a lot, but it's just that it's so effective because it's a free funnel, and also the Grand Warden can reach buildings on the inside, such as this multi-target Inferno. If you can get a splash damage defense out of the way early on, then that is perfect for the Yetis. The more you can concentrate their fire through the base, the better. So the Barbarian King, along with the Siege Barracks in a second, will be used to this top side in order to funnel all of that. So we've got the Grand Warden funneled the left, Siege Barracks and the King funneled the right, for the Yetis again to come straight through the base. Relatively straightforward, but let's take a look at the earthquakes which have opened up this entire area. Now what that allows us to do is get access not only to the scattershot, couldn't think of what that was called there, at the bottom, but also pushes through to the eagle, to this multi, but also down towards the multi and the scattershot. So basically all of the splash damages exposed, and we are able to take them out. So as they come through, rage your Yetis through this. Now either what you can do is have a jump spell to give you access to the back end, or in this case it would only be for the town hall. So very wisely sends the battle blimp the entire length of the map in order to get there. Now there's a million and one ways that you can do this, but actually the town hall has to be a big priority for you, whether you send the Yeti Smash straight into it or whether you have a clear plan to get it, whether that be with the battle blimp or the royal champion even. You've just got to have a plan. You cannot miss out on that 2-star, especially with the current meta of the game, if you will, a lot of the emphasis being on the clan war leagues and the single attack format, especially in the world championships. Now with the Yeti Smash you might find this, that you have a lot of defenses on the perimeter. This is where the royal champion can really come into play, because her ability can help clear out a huge proportion of defenses on the outside, but also you've got to be ready with cleanup troops. So the Yetis did clean up the entire bottom area with help from that royal champion, so wizards are the best method to get through that. The queen's ability as well can be saved as long as possible, because the Yetis will be coming through in front of the queen, who is that ranged troop. Similar to the P.E.K.K.A. Smash at Town Hall 12, you might also want to save a balloon or so that when the defenses are tanked onto the Yetis, you can bring them in. However, a lot of the time with the Yetis and the Yeti mites, how they act, the wizards are what I would recommend. So set up the funnel on either side, make sure you've got clear pathing all of the way through the base, especially to the scatter shots and the town hall. Grand Warden Walk if you can, and make sure you do have cleanup as well. It will come to no surprise to many of you that the hybrid attack is the number one, the Hogs and the Miners. Now it can be a little bit subjective, some people feel the Yetis are better, let me know what you think in the comments. However, the hybrid is so reliable in war for the anti-3-star bases. If you're in multiplayer, then the Yetis is probably the better option for the anti-2-star bases. But for war, the hybrid is the best in my opinion. What do you need to do? Well, majority of the time the queen charge is going to be your method of choice. There's just nothing as effective as that in order to set up the raid. One method that is not shown in this attack, but you will be able to find within my recent videos, is the battle blimp with the Yetis on the inside. You can use that as part of the Yeti Smash or the hybrid. So in this one, a couple of loons and the wizard created the funnel up to the north of the base. Now that is enough for the queen to then self-funnel the rest of it. So what I mean by that is the queen is a ranged troop. Yes, she takes down a few buildings here, but then she continues to take out the other buildings within her radius. And once she takes down the archer tower, then she is going to be drawn down this way because of the wizard and balloons at the top. So whilst the wizard and balloons only took out them few buildings, it was enough to then drive the queen where we wanted. Allow the queen to self-funnel the final buildings if necessary, such as that archer tower. Sometimes the inside buildings can be tricky, just take note as to where you are putting the queen. Now this is very key. These styles of bases with the tiny little gaps in the the walls here are incredibly popular right now, and the idea is to try and send your hero on the outside. So if you're doing a queen charge, the defender is trying to send your queen on the outside. That is why on this one the king is there ahead of time to force the queen onto the inside. There's nowhere else for her to go as long as you're not breaking open extra walls and things like that. Sometimes people will actually take some wall breakers for this section, but that's a separate story. Once the king has created the funnel, queen can come in and it's continuing to keep her raged up. Now you've got to try and pre-plan this. How many are you going to need? You can have a little bit of flexibility into your army as well, but you should be committing a relatively large amount to your queen. Most of the time you will be committing most of your spells to the queen charge because you're trying to take down huge value. Now with that is going to be the town hall. You very rarely want to send your Hogs and Miners to the town hall unless you are sending them directly onto it. If it's right there and they can get it straight away, that's the only time I would recommend it, and you'd still want to use your Grand Warden's ability for it. But if the queen can take it, as in this example, then perfect. What you're also trying to do with the queen charge, as with many strategies, is create the pathing. So the queen has taken out everything on this left hand side. We have the siege barracks which came in to take out everything on the right hand side here, and you can see on your screen straight away where the Hogs and Miners will come through. Straight through the center of the base, no messing. That is exactly what happens. The miners come in first. Main reason is they're a little bit tankier, but the hog riders are faster, and you want them to merge together in the middle of the base. My recommendation would be heal, Grand Warden's ability, heal, as a general rule of thumb. However, if you are hitting scatter shots, you have to be careful. So you're healing through them, you're using your Grand Warden's ability. Most of the time, if they are going to split anyway, that's when you use the ability, or try and time it when there is so much damage that you're obviously using it to best effect. Now, I wanted to highlight this as well. Freeze the scatter shots wherever possible if needed, but also just check out whatever value you can get, guys. If there's an eagle and a scatter shot together, do take a freeze spell. There's so much value, potentially even more value if you're taking 2 freeze than a heal alone. You can just get so much help from that. And from the entire area where the Hogs and Miners came down, there was not really a point in this raid. Feel free to rewind back and have a look, but there really wasn't a point where the Hogs and Miners didn't get help from spells. Give it heal spells, freeze spells, Grand Warden's ability, and this is where the Royal Champion comes into play as well. She's well protected in the middle of the Hogs and Miners. She can be used to take out the enemy heroes, but that's the beauty of the hybrid as well. The Miners will be able to take out the defending heroes, and you should be golden. On a side note, you can sometimes use the Royal Champion to help create pathing because you want to keep the Hogs and Miners focused through the middle of the base, focused through the splash damage, and I hope them strategies helped you. If you do want to see the Yeti Smash in more depth though, I've linked it on your screen now. I'd highly recommend checking that one out. But that wraps it up for this one. Until next time, peace out.